First, welcome back to Buddha's Words for You, a place where every sharing is offered with the hope of planting a wholesome seed in the heart. Faith, allowing the mind to become increasingly peaceful and clear amidst the ever-changing currents of life. Faith, if you feel that the Dharma reflections shared here bring even a small benefit to your soul, we warmly invite you to continue accompanying this channel with sincere appreciation. Food, nurturing wholesome conditions along the path of understanding the profound teachings of the Buddha. Vard, life resembles a vast and bustling marketplace where each person holds a unique perspective, and very few truly understand the deepest thoughts and feelings hidden within our hearts. If we continue living merely to satisfy the emotions and expectations of others, we gradually become exhausted, mentally drained, and sometimes lose touch with our own kind and virtuous nature. Yet, if we choose to live honestly, according to our conscience, treat others with gentleness, and maintain kindness toward life itself, then regardless of praise or criticism, our inner world can remain at peace. There are moments when we should quietly ask ourselves what purpose has truly guided our efforts through all these years, and for whom we have been living amidst this impermanent existence. Those who live with kindness are often mistaken for being weak, while those who remain upright and principled frequently endure pain, hardship, and unexpected challenges throughout life's uncertain journey. However, the true answer has never been found in the scrutinizing eyes or judgments of others, but has always resided deep within the heart and conscience of every human being. One day, we come to understand that living kindly is not meant to gain anyone's approval, nor is it an attempt to prove ourselves superior to others in this world. Living kindly simply allows us to walk through this human life with a pure and gentle spirit, carrying no heavy burden of regret when we eventually look back. Life already contains countless worries and responsibilities that pull people each day into the relentless cycle of survival and the unnamed pressures that accompany existence. Some people struggle endlessly for daily necessities, while others silently carry deep emotional wounds that few possess the sensitivity to recognize. If we constantly burden ourselves with arguments, conflicts, and endless concerns about worldly gossip and opinions, our hearts gradually become narrower and more confined. When the soul is no longer spacious and open, peace has nowhere to dwell, and the light of serenity slowly fades from our lives. The wise of old compared the human heart to a small room, and when it becomes crowded with resentment, anger, and rivalry, there is no space left for true ease to enter. Within the Buddha's wondrous teachings lies a truth so simple, yet so profound, that it possesses the power to transform the suffering accumulated throughout an entire lifetime. From ancient times until now, hatred has never possessed the ability to eliminate hatred. Only genuine love and compassion can dissolve the knots of resentment that bind humanity. When someone insults us and we respond with anger, it is much like pouring more oil onto a fierce fire already raging within our own consciousness. That fire eventually burns both sides, and what remains in the end is suffering, regret, and wounds that are often difficult to heal completely. But if we know how to pause at the right moment and respond to others with compassion, bitterness, and resentment will gradually settle and fade with time. face. The other person may not change immediately, yet within our own hearts, a profound transformation has already begun to unfold with remarkable peace and grace. Wow. When our hearts become peaceful, the world around us also begins to soften, because the outer reality often reflects the inner landscape we cultivate within ourselves. Therefore, what others say or how they behave belongs to their own karma and choices, while our greatest responsibility is to preserve the goodness and clarity of our own minds. Our duty is not to plunge into the whirlpool of greed, anger, and delusion in order to compete with life, but to maintain a gentle heart amid worldly confusion. Living kindly has never been about displaying our virtue for others to admire, but about looking honestly at ourselves each day without feeling ashamed before our conscience. Living kindly is also a quiet declaration to life that despite every storm surrounding us, we still choose love and continue protecting inner peace. There may be people who do not understand the path you are walking, and others who criticize or even look down upon the sincere kindness you offer. Yet, all of those things gradually lose their importance when you are living with genuine tranquility and authentic peace within your own heart. When we release the burdens of blame, resentment, and worldly gossip, the soul begins to expand like a vast blue sky without boundaries. No matter how many times the winds of life may blow, they cannot easily shake our hearts, and even fierce storms lack the power to destroy our inner stability. Amid noisy streets and the hurried footsteps of countless people searching for something they themselves may not fully understand, life continues to rush onward. Have you ever paused in silence and asked yourself why your heart so often feels restless, easily irritated by others, and unable to free itself from lingering worries? Some people have traveled through many stages of life, achieved considerable success, and obtained things that countless others deeply desire. Yet, deep within their souls remains an obscure emptiness that cannot be filled, as though life has never truly belonged to them. Amid the endless excitement and distractions of the world, people often continue to feel lonely and uncertain about where their hearts can truly find refuge. This is often the moment when the mind is being swept into the currents of comparison, competition, and attachments that silently grow stronger over the years. At such times, our eyes no longer view life through understanding and compassion, but become focused on distinguishing, evaluating, and judging one another. We begin comparing ourselves to others through every word and every small action, unconsciously creating unnecessary suffering for our own hearts. We easily conclude that one person is not good enough, suspect that another cannot be trusted, and assume that their lives are moving in the wrong direction. These tiny seeds of rivalry, ego attachment, and judgment quietly poison the soul day after day, often without us even realizing their harmful influence. Human beings suffer not only because of visible wounds before their eyes, but also because of countless invisible thorns they themselves have embedded deep within their consciousness. Each time we compare ourselves to others, we inflict another wound upon our own hearts and make life feel heavier and more painful. Each time we judge another person, we lose a portion of our natural serenity and drift further away from genuine inner peace. And each time we compete with the world, we take another step away from compassion and move closer to the darkness of resentment and unwholesome karma. And many people believe that only by surpassing others can they prove their worth, and only by demonstrating that they are right can they earn recognition in this world. Bind. They assume that constantly pointing out the faults of others is necessary to protect justice and prevent themselves from being deceived amidst the complexities of human society. Bias. The more people immerse themselves in competition and rivalry, the more they quietly diminish their blessings and exhaust the wholesome energy residing within their own hearts. Bond. Many individuals do not truly suffer because of life's great tragedies, but because they nurture a competitive and comparing mind every day through the smallest of matters. Bond. Just one unpleasant remark can be enough to make the heart uneasy, irritable, and burdened with frustration throughout an entire day filled with mental unrest. Bars. Even a disapproving glance from another person can stir feelings of resentment within us and leave us feeling wounded amidst the circumstances of life. Bard. Even a small action from a loved one that fails to meet our expectations can cause deep pain and give rise to countless heavy emotions that are difficult to describe. Bars. In this way, day after day, life becomes fragmented by our own sensitivity and anger, scattered into countless weary and anxious pieces. And yet if one day we learn to pause deeply within ourselves, letting go of competition and abandoning the habit of viewing life through harsh judgment, we will sit quietly within this world like a humble traveler, no longer pushing ourselves into the game of winning and losing, nor striving to secure advantages for ourselves alone. Then, amidst the endless conversations and conflicts of human society, we begin to experience a kind of genuine peace that we may never have touched before. But peace does not arise because everything around us becomes perfect according to our wishes, but because the heart no longer clings stubbornly to victory and defeat. This is the moment when a person is no longer imprisoned by the rigid assumptions of the ego and begins opening to life with gentle awareness and understanding. Only then can we live in harmony with conditions, accept whatever is present, and remain calm with every remaining breath in this impermanent human existence. We learn to respond naturally to every glance and every smile from others without expecting them to behave according to our personal desires anymore. We also learn to love the ground beneath our feet, the work we are doing, and the loved ones around us with a heart overflowing with gratitude. This is not surrender or weakness, but rather a wise acceptance born from understanding the profound law of causes, conditions, and interdependence in life. It is the ability to recognize what should be preserved within the heart to nourish goodness and what should be released in order to cultivate peace and ease. A mindful person also knows when to step away from harmful influences and when to continue moving forward with sincere determination and inner strength. Living in this way, the soul naturally becomes calm and steady like a still lake, undisturbed by the stones of rivalry, comparison, and judgment. Just as a leaf gently settles upon the earth, a human being can also remain serene amidst every change, understanding that life is simply a complete and meaningful journey. When we no longer feel compelled to prove our value to anyone, the heart gradually opens into a vast space of freedom and profound tranquility. And when the mind truly begins to find peace, the world around us seems gentler, and everything in life feels lighter than before. Finding other people are no longer rivals to compete against or oppose, but fellow human beings carrying their own karmic conditions and personal suffering. 5. Life itself also ceases to be a fierce battlefield of comparison and becomes instead a place where we learn to love and cultivate compassion day by day. Faith. Each passing day is no longer a struggle to secure victory, but a precious opportunity to live more deeply and authentically with ourselves there, rather than endlessly struggling within ambition and prejudice. We can sit quietly in the present moment, take a deep breath, and smile with heartfelt gratitude. Bowed, simply being granted another day to live with a light and clear spirit is already a magnificent gift bestowed upon us by life itself. There. Such peace cannot be handed to us by anyone else if we have not genuinely returned inward and released the thorns of competition and judgment. Thus, only when the human heart learns to become lighter can the flowers of serenity bloom fully within the soil of a soul once parched by affliction. Why, amid the endless flow of life and the turbulent waves of conflict, gossip, and dispute, there has always been a path nearby that few people choose to follow. Fact. It is the path of returning to the breath, the simple way taught by the Buddha so that people may rediscover awareness within themselves. 5. This path is neither mysterious nor distant, but exists within every inhalation and exhalation of ordinary daily life. There, nor do we require a perfectly ideal environment or advanced techniques, for a single moment of genuine pause is already enough. Bearing just one breath, experienced fully with complete attention, can interrupt the cycle of ignorance and reactive anger that binds the mind. Bound. The Buddha once taught that the human mind resembles a monkey swinging from branch to branch, constantly leaping from one thought to another illusion. Bound. If we wish to master this restless and unpredictable mind, we must first learn to return and become aware of each breath we take. 4. For the breath is the bridge connecting body and mind, connecting the miracle of present reality with the awakening that lies dormant within every person. 5. When the mind pays attention to the breath, it no longer wanders endlessly through memories of the past or fears about an uncertain future. At that moment, the mind truly begins returning home to itself instead of continuously chasing the disturbances and anxieties of the outside world. And only when the mind is fully present in the current moment can we clearly see ourselves through the illuminating light of mindful awareness. Whenever we hear unpleasant words reaching our ears, we always have the option to become angry and react according to ordinary human instincts. 5. But if we react immediately without awareness, we lose a precious opportunity to cultivate ourselves and transform our own inner world. Fact. If we can pause for just a single breath and return to the sensation of air flowing gently through the tip of the nose, mindfulness will begin to arise. We begin to notice the heat rising within our bodies, our lips tightening, and our hands clenching as anger gradually starts to emerge and intensify. The very moment we recognize these signs is a miraculous moment of awakening, when the mind begins to clearly see the anger arising within itself. And sometimes, simply seeing anger clearly is enough to prevent it from carrying us away and controlling our words or actions any longer. Mindfulness is not about suppressing emotions or pretending that we are not suffering, but about learning to recognize everything exactly as it appears. Fact. It means looking directly at our emotions without exaggerating them, without denying them, and without attempting to justify the ego-driven reactions arising within us. Fact. It is also the ability to notice the judging mind as it emerges, without identifying ourselves with the negative thoughts passing through our awareness. Bard. We clearly see the desire to be right, growing stronger within us, yet we no longer allow it to dictate our speech or our actions. Bard. Instead of reacting with anger and arguments to defend personal viewpoints, the mindful person chooses to return to the breath and the peace within. Bard. Rather than pushing sharp arguments outward in an effort to defeat others, we choose to inhale deeply and exhale slowly with mindful awareness. Bard. In those precious moments, we are no longer swept away by stories of right and wrong, but return to listening deeply to the feelings within our hearts. Bard. We begin sensing the subtle movements of body and mind, understanding that every emotion is ultimately just a passing wave moving through consciousness. Bide. Sometimes, merely 3 mindful breaths, lived with full awareness, are enough to dissolve a conflict that once seemed impossible to resolve. Fast. A hurtful word that was about to be spoken may stop in time, and a surge of anger may melt into tears, filled with gratitude and understanding. Faith. There is a paradox that everyone who sincerely walks the path of learning and practice will eventually encounter and contemplate deeply. Buck. We once believed that letting go was a sign of weakness, surrender, and an inability to continue fighting within a world full of challenges. Yet, the deeper we journey inward, the more life experiences we pass through, and the more mindfulness we cultivate, the more we realize that letting go is a profound form of wisdom. Letting go does not mean abandoning all effort or turning away from life, but rather setting down the things that continue to create suffering within the heart. Nor does letting go mean becoming indifferent, emotionally numb, or denying our responsibilities toward family and the world around us. Here, letting go is a mindful act performed by someone who has seen the impermanent nature of all things and understands what should be kept and what should be released. When a person becomes sufficiently aware to recognize what no longer nourishes the soul, no longer supports goodness, and no longer serves growth, letting go arises naturally and gently. Then, true letting go carries no lingering regret, no painful grasping, and no resistance toward what has already reached the time to depart. Letting go of an unrealistic expectation is a gift of relief to oneself, creating space to breathe peacefully amidst life's constant uncertainties. Letting go of a long-held resentment is like opening the door to liberation, allowing the soul to become freer and more peaceful with each passing day. Letting go of someone who no longer belongs within our karmic path is not losing everything, but rediscovering ourselves after a long period of wandering. Letting go of an argument filled with debates about right and wrong is sometimes not defeat at all, but the preservation of a relationship that truly matters. Letting go of an old prejudice allows us to see others through new eyes, filled with greater compassion, understanding, and openness. Only when we release the heavy burden of ego attachment can we travel further along the path toward genuine freedom and lasting serenity. The Buddha taught that when people know how to let go at the proper time, the soul becomes as light as a cloud drifting across the vast sky of impermanent life. But if we continue clinging to things that no longer belong to us, the greatest burden comes not from the outside world, but from our own stubborn attachment. Then, some people suffer throughout their entire lives simply because they never learn how to release what no longer aligns with the conditions of the present moment. That they continue holding tightly to someone who no longer offers them love, only making their hearts more exhausted and deeply wounded. Others cling desperately to work that gradually drains their spirit because they fear change and lack the courage to step onto a new path. There are also those who exhaust themselves trying to prove their worth through things that are no longer truly necessary within this impermanent life. But many remain trapped in resentment, regret, and hatred because they refuse to release painful memories that passed long ago. But when we cultivate enough mindfulness, enough stillness, and enough presence within each miraculous breath, we come to understand that letting go is a tremendous blessing. And letting go is not a loss, but an opportunity for inner renewal and the beginning of a new journey lived with greater awareness and ease. It is also a sign that our minds are no longer being controlled by ignorant reactions, but are gradually guided by the light of wisdom and understanding. When we release what no longer serves us, the heart not only becomes lighter, but also creates space to receive new and wholesome blessings. Like a cup already filled with murky water, if we refuse to pour out what is old and stagnant, we cannot receive fresh and clear water. The human mind is much the same. If it remains crowded with resentment, competition, judgment, and fear, true peace will never have the chance to take root. When the heart is overflowing with expectations and anxieties, genuine love also struggles to grow fully and endure over time. Sometimes, letting go of an old relationship is not an act of rejection or indifference, but a recognition that each person must follow a separate path to mature. Sometimes, leaving a job that no longer aligns with us is not laziness, but a sincere desire to live more faithfully according to our deepest values. There are dreams from our youth that must eventually be released, not because we have failed, but because time has transformed us into someone wiser and different. We come to realize that every stage of life brings new priorities that deserve our attention, care, and wholehearted presence, guided by mindful awareness. Therefore, letting go becomes one of the most courageous journeys that every sincere seeker of the Dharma must eventually undertake to understand themselves more deeply. It is the journey of daring to return inward and look honestly into the hidden corners of consciousness that have long been avoided and ignored. It means accepting that not everything we desire is necessarily right, and not every belief we once held will remain unchanged forever. It is also the courageous path of admitting that we too make mistakes and must learn to grow from them instead of blaming others. Only by returning to examine the inner world through mindfulness can we recognize that the root of all suffering arises from the restless and wandering mind. No one truly causes our suffering except our own attachment and persistent grasping toward things that have already changed. No one forces us into anxiety if we do not imprison ourselves within endless streams of repetitive thoughts and mental agitation each day. Find no one truly disappoints us except the unrealistic expectations we unconsciously place upon others and then use to wound ourselves. For this reason, letting go has never been a sign of weakness, but a powerful way of living, embraced by those who understand impermanence. It is the gentle strength of someone who has seen deeply into the nature of causes and conditions and understands that all things change with time. We let go in order to live more deeply in the present moment, to love more wisely, and to walk through life with greater lightness and peace. Many of us find it easy to extend understanding and forgiveness toward others, yet remain remarkably harsh and demanding toward ourselves. 5. We may forgive the mistakes of loved ones, sympathize with friends, and show kindness to strangers, yet still fail to offer compassion to ourselves. We often criticize, pressure, and punish ourselves for small mistakes that other people may not even notice or consider important. How many times have we quietly told ourselves that we are inadequate, weak, or somehow not good enough to deserve happiness and peace? And those negative whispers quietly deepen old wounds day after day, carving into places within the heart that have long remained hidden. When the mind is unsettled, the body gradually becomes exhausted as well, and even our relationships begin to develop subtle fractures. This happens because people often forget that if they cannot genuinely love themselves, their love for others remains fragile and uncertain. The Buddha once taught that even after traveling throughout the entire world, no one is more deserving of your love than yourself. This teaching does not encourage selfishness, but gently reminds us that compassion toward ourselves is the first step toward genuine healing. When we pause, place a hand upon our heart, and take a deep breath filled with mindfulness and sincere self-love. In that moment, we can gently tell ourselves that for far too long we have neglected our own well-being amidst life's pressures and responsibilities. From this day forward, we can learn to listen to ourselves more carefully, care for ourselves more lovingly, and be gentler with unhealed wounds. At that very moment, a healing energy quietly begins to arise and spread throughout the weary corners of the human heart. We do not need to wait until we become perfect or stop making mistakes before believing we are worthy of love and healing. A sincere heart combined with even a small amount of mindful awareness is enough to open the door to profound inner transformation. Compassion toward ourselves means acknowledging that we have also become tired and deserve moments of rest, peace, and renewal. It is also the courage to say no to things that wound our spirit, even when others may not understand or agree with our decision. A wise person chooses to preserve peace within the heart, rather than insisting on being right in every meaningless argument or competition. They understand that their own heart also deserves comfort and healing, just like countless other hearts carrying wounds throughout this world. Compassion toward oneself is also a profound spiritual practice, requiring us to release perfectionism and remove the mask of artificial strength. It means living honestly with emotions that are still hurting, instead of constantly hiding behind a carefully constructed image of invulnerability. Only when people truly learn to love and heal themselves can they offer pure love to others without calculation, expectation, or exchange. Fine. There are moments in life when we do not need to say anything more, nor rush to explain ourselves or defend what is right or wrong. For silence, arising from a heart that has understood, released, and no longer clings, is often the gentlest response to worldly judgment and gossip. 5. The Buddha once taught that a practitioner should learn to be like an elephant in battle, steadily moving forward despite arrows coming from every direction. 5. Such silence is not passivity or weakness, but a profound inner strength cultivated through mindfulness, wisdom, and understanding. 5. It is the maturity of consciousness, the wisdom of someone who is no longer swept away by external noise, praise, or criticism. Best, we do not need to explain ourselves endlessly when others misunderstand us, because those who truly trust us will eventually understand through their hearts. Find. And if trust does not exist within them, then no amount of explanation will accomplish anything except creating greater exhaustion and disappointment. 4. A person with genuine inner strength does not need to shout in order to prove their worth, for such urgency often reflects an unsettled heart. 5. Someone whose mind is truly stable can remain silent while still looking upon life with compassion, gentleness, and understanding. Forward, they need only walk quietly forward, and yet every step remains steady amidst adversity, while their heart stays vast and open like the endless sky. Bound. Sometimes, silence does not arise because there is nothing left to say, but because we understand that peace is too precious to exchange for arguments and competition through words. Bond. It is the moment when a person realizes that no statement is more valuable than preserving the deep stillness and serenity that reside within the heart. Find. Only within that silence can we truly hear the most sincere voice of our inner being, long hidden beneath the noise of the outside world. Face ourselves honestly and see clearly the wounds that have never been healed, quietly lingering within the depths of the heart. 5. We also come to understand that our desires and attachments are often the very causes of the suffering and restlessness that keep us trapped. And at that point, we no longer hide our pain behind forced smiles or continue exhausting ourselves trying to satisfy everyone around us. We learn to accept that we too carry wounds, have made mistakes, and experience moments of vulnerability that are simply part of being human. And yet, despite carrying many scars within, we remain worthy of love, kindness, and the gentle embrace of genuine compassion. Balm. Silence also means refraining from judging others and beginning instead to cultivate a wider heart filled with compassion for all beings around us. 5. We stop speaking, not to withdraw from life, but to learn how to listen to others with complete presence, sincerity, and understanding. And more deeply still, we learn to listen to ourselves so that we may understand the emotions quietly living within our own hearts. 4. Sometimes, what a person needs most is not advice or instruction, but simply a peaceful space in which healing can naturally unfold. Or, when the world outside becomes overwhelmingly noisy and leaves the mind exhausted, remember that there is always a refuge of peace to which you can return. 5. That refuge is the stillness within, a sacred place no one can touch or harm when it is protected through mindfulness and awareness. Abide in that inner sanctuary gossip and criticism lose their power to wound us, and worldly competition can no longer cause us to lose ourselves. And many people have often wondered why they strive to live kindly, yet life still seems filled with bitterness, hardship, and unending sorrow. And they ask why they have not intentionally done wrong, yet continue to be misunderstood, blamed, and forced to endure many difficulties in life. Round. Others question why those lacking virtue appear to live in wealth and comfort, while kind-hearted people often face trials and hardship. Such questions have appeared during countless sleepless nights when human beings confront injustice and the unpredictable changes of life. Yet, under the illuminating light of the Buddha's teaching on karma and causality, everything that occurs in life has its own deeper causes. Every thought, every word, and every action, no matter how small, leaves an imprint upon the stream of karmic energy shaping a lifetime. The seeds we plant today do not always bear fruit immediately, for some require a great deal of time before they blossom and mature. Some seeds sprout within a matter of days, while others must wait through many seasons or even lifetimes before reaching fulfillment. Yet once a seed has been planted, sooner or later, it will bloom or bear fruit according to the nature of what was originally sown. The Buddha taught that the mind is the source from which all things arise, the master of experience, and the creator of each person's life. If we speak and act with a mind polluted by negativity and ignorance, suffering will follow us, just as a wheel follows the ox that pulls the cart. Conversely, if we live with a pure and wholesome heart, peace and happiness will accompany us like a gentle shadow that never departs. Understanding karma is not meant to encourage resignation or passivity in the face of suffering, but to inspire transformation and responsibility. It is the practice of refraining from blaming others or complaining about life, while turning inward to examine ourselves with mindful awareness. We ask ourselves what kinds of seeds we have planted, what thoughts we are nurturing, and how we respond to the challenges life presents. We must also look deeply enough to determine whether we are truly living with compassion or merely displaying a kind appearance while harboring anger within. Sometimes, the suffering we experience today is not because we are bad in the present, but because old, unwholesome seeds are ripening at their appointed time. There are also occasions when people endure pain, not because of current mistakes, but because of causes and conditions established long ago. Yet, if in the present moment we choose to cultivate awareness, self-correction, and transformation, then our destiny begins to change as well. Day by day, we are rewriting the story of our lives through each small, wholesome thought, nurtured by mindfulness and profound compassion. Karma has never been a punishment imposed by life, but rather a lesson designed to awaken human beings and help them grow through every challenge. It is also the most honest mirror, reflecting our inner world and revealing what truly guides us within the depths of the heart. The more deeply we understand karma and causality, the more responsibly we live, not only toward others, but toward every thought arising within ourselves. We realize that every thought that emerges is also a seed being planted in the garden of our own consciousness. The mind is the most fertile soil of all, and whatever seed is planted there will eventually produce fruit that corresponds to its nature. Therefore, whenever we are misunderstood, falsely accused, or wounded by the actions of others, rather than reacting with anger and resentment, whenever we face hurt or misunderstanding in life, instead of reacting impulsively, let us step back and listen deeply to ourselves with mindful awareness. Let us ask what lesson this difficulty is trying to teach us, and whether we may be unconsciously repeating an old karmic pattern from the past. Thus, we should also honestly reflect upon what we need to release so that we may fully receive the lesson that life is quietly offering us. When we learn to live in this way, we no longer view life as an enemy constantly opposing us, but begin seeing everything through eyes filled with gratitude and understanding. We come to realize that every adversity appearing in our lives is a spiritual teacher, helping us mature and awaken more deeply within our consciousness. Each hardship that arises is no longer seen as a painful punishment, but as a precious opportunity to cultivate mindfulness and strengthen our inner resilience. Those who once hurt us are no longer objects of blame and resentment, but mirrors reflecting the unhealed corners of our own hearts. And through that understanding, the human heart gradually softens, no longer seeking to argue about right and wrong or prove anything to the world. We simply need to keep our minds steady like a small candle, standing amid the strong winds of life's endless changes and judgments. A candle that burns with sufficient steadiness will only shine more beautifully in the wind, for no storm can extinguish the flame of inner peace. In daily life, there are seemingly insignificant conversations that nonetheless leave lingering pain and regret within the heart for many years. There are careless words that appear insignificant in the moment, yet become the reason two people no longer wish to face one another. There are also misunderstandings that persist for years, simply because each person insists on being right and refuses to surrender the final word. From such small matters arise countless forms of silent suffering that continue from one month to another and from one year to the next, without resolution. But if at some moment we choose to slow down, place a hand upon our chest, and breathe deeply with complete mindfulness, we may become peaceful enough to ask ourselves what truly valuable thing our hearts would gain by defeating the other person. And perhaps in that very moment, we simply smile gently and choose to walk away in silence, filled with understanding and compassion. For what brings genuine peace to the human heart has never been victory over others, but victory over the competitive mind within ourselves. The Buddha taught that responding to hatred with hatred only causes resentment to accumulate endlessly within this world of ignorance. And only sincere compassion possesses the power to transform hatred and bring peace to hearts burdened by suffering and pain. Sometimes that compassion is not intended for another person at all, but becomes a healing gift offered to our own weary soul. A heart that has endured countless disputes and struggles eventually understands that peace is more precious than any worldly triumph. Those who no longer feel compelled to compete with others are not weak, but have deeply understood the nature of suffering and impermanence. They understand that winning an argument may come at the cost of losing someone who once held great importance in their lives. There are arguments in which even being right ultimately results in the loss of a meaningful and loving relationship. There are victories that appear glorious on the surface, yet later bring hundreds of moments of regret and inner anguish. Conversely, if we know when to stop and when to let go, we preserve things far more valuable than proving who is right. People who no longer compete with life are often individuals with strong inner foundations who have passed through many lessons of awakening. They understand that truth does not need to be shouted aloud, for those with sufficient affinity will eventually recognize it through sincere hearts. What is truly right also does not require loud proclamation, because the nature of truth is to reveal itself naturally over time. Therefore, they choose a life of quiet awareness, not to escape the world, but to protect peace for themselves and those around them. For a person who lives in such a way carries a gentle energy wherever they go, allowing others to feel lighter and more at ease. They do not make anyone feel diminished or wounded through harsh words or a competitive attitude. Nor do they create heaviness within their surroundings, but instead appear like a cool breeze on a sweltering summer day. Or they resemble a clear stream that neither competes nor resists, yet steadily continues its journey toward the vast and open sea. If one day someone provokes, misunderstands, or blames you, and your heart remains peaceful enough to smile without reacting, then know that you are truly walking the path of non-attachment and preserving inner stability amidst a world filled with uncertainty. Each day lived in this manner is another step closer to inner freedom and genuine liberation from suffering. The Buddha taught that all phenomena arise according to conditions and eventually dissolve according to conditions within the flow of impermanence. All things depend upon one another for existence, continuously changing and passing away, while nothing remains fixed forever. When we truly understand this principle, the heart demands less, attachment weakens, and a natural lightness begins to emerge. Living in harmony with conditions does not mean surrendering to fate or abandoning all effort to transform ourselves. Nor does it mean compromising with wrongdoing, but rather learning to live in balance with what is presently unfolding. It is the ability to recognize that every circumstance carries its own deeper causes, conditions, and karmic significance. Every person we meet in life is a necessary connection through which we are meant to learn a particular lesson for our spiritual growth. Even difficulties and life-changing events become opportunities that help us cultivate mindfulness and gain a deeper understanding of ourselves. To live in harmony with conditions is to know when to let go, when to continue forward, and when to step back in order to preserve inner peace. It is also the wisdom of knowing when to stop at the right moment instead of stubbornly clinging to things that no longer belong in our lives. A person who lives in harmony with conditions does not force life to unfold according to personal desires, but learns to adjust themselves to the causes and conditions of the present moment. Some people enter our lives only to eventually depart, while certain occupations that once seemed important also reach their natural conclusion and fade away. There are plans that appear flawless and promising, yet remain unfinished, because life always unfolds in ways beyond anyone's ability to predict. If we stubbornly insist that everything must happen exactly as we wish, suffering will inevitably follow whenever life begins to change. Faith. But when the heart understands how to flow with conditions, even amidst loss and separation, we can still smile with understanding and peace. And not because the heart feels no pain, but because we understand that everything happening is contributing to our growth and awakening. Vow. Living in harmony with conditions has never been a sign of weakness, but rather the courage to accept reality and respond with greater wisdom. Faith. It is the understanding that when something cannot be forced, the wisest choice is often to stop gracefully and rest in peace. Faith. When certain people no longer belong within our karmic path, instead of clinging in sorrow, we can release them gently with gratitude. Faith. Likewise, when places or environments no longer nourish the soul, it may be time to step away and rediscover inner peace. Vow. Living in harmony with conditions means not endlessly tormenting ourselves over the past, nor living in fear of an uncertain future. Forcing. It means not forcing the present moment to become perfect, but learning to remain composed amid praise and tranquil amid criticism. Vowed. Those who understand the principle of flowing with conditions never allow others to determine their true worth and value. Wise. They understand that whatever possesses sufficient conditions will naturally remain, while whatever is ready to depart should be allowed to follow the flow of impermanence. But what remains in the end is often what truly deserves to be cherished and protected with the deepest sincerity of the heart. Bard. And through this willingness to follow causes and conditions, the mind gradually becomes free from craving and fear. Fruit. We continue living amidst a constantly changing world without allowing ourselves to be swept away by its cycles of anxiety and restless desire. Else, we can engage fully with life while refusing to let any circumstance invade and disturb the peace residing within our hearts. 5. A mindful person acts with awareness, speaks with gentleness, and nurtures wholesome and pure thoughts within the mind. But then every breath, every step, and even every glance exchanged between people can become a profound and beautiful practice of meditation. 5. One who lives in harmony with conditions does not withdraw from life, but continues walking among people with a peace that depends on no external circumstance. Bound. This is the most beautiful and profound art of living that the Buddha quietly revealed through simple teachings filled with liberation. Bound. It is an art that seeks no display, requires no elaborate form, yet possesses the power to guide people back to genuine peace within their hearts. And there are wounds that remain within human memory, even after many years have passed and time has traveled a very long distance. That there are careless words, cold actions, and old misunderstandings that continue lingering in the heart like scars that never fully heal. And we carry such pain not because we are weak, but because we have not yet truly learned the deeper meaning of forgiveness and release. Barn. Forgiveness does not mean erasing everything that happened or pretending that painful experiences never existed within our lives. Faith. Nor does forgiveness mean approving of, accepting, or agreeing with the wrongs that others may have inflicted upon us. Bond. Forgiveness is the practice of setting down a burden that the heart has carried silently and wearily for far too long. Bard. It means no longer embracing an old wound and repeatedly tearing it open through endless revisiting of painful memories. Vow. Forgiveness also arises when a person allows themselves to continue their journey through life without demanding justice from everyone else. The Buddha taught that hatred can never eliminate hatred, and that only love possesses the power to dissolve resentment and hostility best, and that genuine love always begins with generosity of heart and compassion, carefully cultivated within one's own inner world. When we truly forgive, it is not because the other person deserves forgiveness, but because we deserve to live in peace. No one can experience genuine happiness while carrying excessive bitterness, resentment, and unresolved anger within the heart. Forgiveness is often a long journey through many layers of emotion before a person finally reaches the tenderest and most vulnerable place within. Some people must endure countless nights of silent tears and many cries hidden in solitude before finding the strength to let go. Then one day, they can gently tell themselves that they have forgiven others and have also forgiven themselves. For in truth, what causes suffering is not only what happened, but also the story we continue telling ourselves afterward. We blame ourselves for trusting too much, loving too deeply, or failing to see the truth clearly from the very beginning. We torment ourselves because we did not act differently in the past, and that self-blame becomes a chain that tightly binds the soul. Releasing others from our resentment is also the act of opening the gate of liberation and rescuing ourselves from a cycle of enduring suffering. Remember that someone who hurt you may have caused pain only once, but without forgiveness, you may continue causing that same pain to yourself countless times thereafter. Those wounds will continue living within memory, appearing in sleepless nights, and even within the restless dreams that drift through an uneasy consciousness. Forgiveness is also the way we remind ourselves that we will no longer allow old wounds to control our present happiness and peace. When you truly learn how to forgive, your heart will feel lighter, as though a burden carried for many long years has finally been set down. Your eyes will become clearer, your voice gentler, and your heart will no longer be weighed down by old resentments and lingering grievances. You will no longer feel compelled to seek revenge or prove anything to others because your inner world has become sufficiently peaceful and clear. Nor will you need to exhaust yourself pretending to be strong, because the greatest strength is the courage to face your own pain directly. It is the ability to walk through deep and hidden wounds and emerge on the other side with a heart that still knows how to love life. In truth, we do not suffer because of the events themselves, but because of the way we continue holding and clutching those events within the mind. Some experiences ended long ago, yet their memories remain as vivid as if they had happened only yesterday within the human heart. Some people have already departed from our lives, yet their presence remains imprinted upon our thoughts and emotions every single day. There are words that seem long forgotten, yet their echoes still pierce the heart whenever they unexpectedly return to memory. It is not life that refuses to release us, but rather ourselves who have not yet learned how to release life through mindful understanding. Attachment is one of the deepest roots behind much of the suffering human beings experience throughout this impermanent existence. We become attached to appearances, attached to praise and criticism, and attached to desires that never seem to reach an end. we also become attached to old memories, old relationships, and even small things that quietly influence our entire inner world. Fact: human beings suffer because they wish to keep everything forever, despite the fact that the nature of life is constant and unavoidable change. Faith: we become anxious because we fear losing what we cherish, and the more tightly we hold on, the more exhausted and unstable we become. Bond: this endless cycle of craving and fear quietly binds our feet, preventing the soul from experiencing genuine freedom. The Buddha called this state attachment, a subtle form of clinging that nonetheless possesses the power to keep people immersed in suffering. 5. He taught that all phenomena are impermanent, and that nothing can remain forever, according to human wishes and expectations. When we truly see this impermanent nature of existence, the mind gradually learns to release and no longer clings so desperately. And within that release, peace begins to arise, like cool water flowing into a heart that has been parched by affliction for far too long. Letting go does not mean abandoning life or ceasing to love, but rather releasing the attachment and grasping hidden within the mind. We continue living, working, and loving others with complete sincerity, yet without becoming bound by dependence or possession. We continue giving our wholehearted effort to the things we believe in, yet we no longer imprison ourselves within outcomes of gain or loss. We may still remember old memories, but we no longer allow them to make our hearts ache and feel burdened as they once did. A person who knows how to let go understands deeply that everything in life arrives and departs according to impermanent causes and conditions. Like clouds moving across the sky, some are bright and gentle, while others carry storms, yet all eventually pass away fast. The sky does not become smaller because of a single cloud, and the human heart can become just as vast and spacious. If we learn to let each cloud of affliction drift by without clinging to it, our inner world gradually becomes lighter and freer. When the mind is no longer attached, people cease being drawn into the games of ego, competition, and stubborn attachment. We also stop allowing the past to control the present, or living endlessly within memories filled with regret and sorrow. At that point, we no longer feel compelled to live for the approval of others, nor do we expect others to satisfy our desires. For deep within, the heart has already become filled with enough peace, understanding, and genuine love to support itself. A person whose inner world is free from attachment is never indifferent, but instead loves with freedom, wisdom, and profound awareness. They cherish everything present in life, yet never turn love into chains of possession, control, or mutual dependency. They also know how to enjoy life's joys without becoming lost in desire, indulgence, or the blindness of unhealthy attachment. Such people walk through life like lotus flowers, rising from muddy waters while preserving their purity, dignity, and serenity. This is the inner freedom that sincere practitioners quietly aspire toward throughout their journey of cultivation and transformation. 5. Such freedom does not arise from possessing countless things in the outer world, but from releasing countless attachments within the heart. 5. What truly matters is not how much you possess, but whether you can still feel complete and peaceful even when something is missing. Free from attachment is the foundation of serenity, awakening, and true ease amidst the busyness and complexity of life. In a world that constantly pulls people into endless cycles of striving and acquisition, we easily forget a simple yet profound truth. True happiness does not come from having more, but from learning to appreciate and treasure what is already present in this very moment. People often believe that if they had a little more money, a little more love, or a little more success, then they would finally feel complete and fulfilled. Yet, once they obtain what they longed for, the heart soon feels lacking again and begins craving even more from this life. In this way, what we call enough becomes a shadow that people spend their entire lives chasing without ever truly reaching. The Buddha taught that the person who knows contentment is the truly wealthy one, and that wealth exists within the heart rather than in material possessions. A contented person does not allow inner feelings of lack to control emotions or rob them of the peace that naturally belongs to them. They may live in simple circumstances, yet their spirit remains light, free, and peaceful, like clouds drifting across an open sky. Even when life lacks certain comforts, they do not feel deprived because their hearts remain filled with gratitude and appreciation. The most precious treasure they possess is a heart that knows how to be grateful, how to stop at the right time, and how to cherish life's smallest blessings. Contentment does not mean abandoning dreams or ceasing to strive, but refusing to sacrifice inner peace in pursuit of endless illusions. It means living and making effort with joy and willingness, rather than exhausting oneself beneath the weight of worldly pressure and expectation. A contented person can enjoy a simple meal with genuine happiness, while still nurturing the aspiration to learn, grow, and improve each day. They do not allow comparisons to become a source of suffering, nor do they look at the lives of others only to criticize themselves. One who understands the wisdom of contentment realizes that every person walks a unique path, shaped by different blessings, conditions, and lessons. And the greatest treasure in this human life is to live faithfully according to one's kind nature and the values one sincerely upholds. A person who lives with contentment carries gratitude for even the smallest gifts that life offers each day. They are grateful for the gentle sunlight of early morning, grateful for a meal shared with loved ones in presence and affection. They are grateful for hands that remain strong enough to work and for feet that continue carrying them along life's journey. It is from this sincere gratitude that happiness begins to bloom naturally from the deepest parts of the human heart. This is a form of happiness that depends on no external condition, but grows from inner peace and mindful presence. Those who live in this way radiate a gentle and comforting energy, regardless of where they are or what circumstances they face. Their presence never makes others feel inferior or burdened within relationships and daily interactions. Nor do they demand that others follow their path, but quietly exist as a gentle reminder of mindfulness and awakening. They help others realize that life is already abundant when we learn to pause, smile, and appreciate what is before us. There are things in this world that we cannot carry with us forever, no matter how dearly we cherish them or how hard we try to preserve them. Or there are people who once shared a profound connection with our lives, yet who eventually depart according to the flow of causes and conditions. 5. There are also dreams that once burned brightly within the heart, but gradually become burdens if we do not learn how to release them. Bound. Letting go does not mean abandoning everything, but is instead an art of living, filled with mindfulness and wisdom amidst life's uncertainties. 5. It is the moment when a person becomes mature enough to stop exhausting themselves by clinging to what no longer belongs within their karmic path. 4. It is also the moment when we learn to return to inner stillness instead of constantly trying to control things beyond our reach. Letting go means understanding that whatever truly belongs with us requires no desperate grasping, while what does not belong cannot be kept through force. 4. The Buddha taught that letting go is the path leading human beings toward genuine peace and profound inner freedom. 4. As long as the mind remains attached, it remains bound, and as long as it remains bound, suffering cannot truly come to an end. Now, the tighter we hold on to something, the heavier the heart becomes, and the more we cling, the more exhausted and restless we feel. Or, the more we try to control life, the more complicated and troubled our existence often becomes. Found. Only when we truly learn to let go can we experience the relief that begins spreading from the deepest places within our hearts. Find. Letting go also means ending the endless search for happiness in distant places and realizing that the present moment is already a miracle. Or it means no longer blaming, no longer demanding, and no longer viewing life through eyes clouded by harsh judgment. Bound. It is learning to pause, to listen deeply, to take a long, mindful breath, and to smile gently at oneself. Bound. Such letting go is a profound liberation, arising when old memories no longer dictate our emotions or shape the course of our present lives. There, letting go also includes accepting loss as a natural part of existence, instead of endlessly resisting it through pain and despair. Bound. It is learning how to love without possessing, and how to give without expecting repayment, recognition, or reward from others. And gradually, we come to understand that the greatest achievement is not holding everything tightly in our hands, but preserving peace within the heart amidst all change. Bond. When we truly learn to let go, we discover that life was never as heavy as we once imagined it to be. Or we also realize that our inner world can become far more spacious when it is no longer bound by craving, attachment, and endless desires. Or the very things that once caused us despair and suffering often turn out to be precious opportunities to learn the deepest lessons of human life. Or they become lessons in letting go, acceptance, and the ability to keep walking with a gentle smile amid the inevitable changes of existence. Or learn to release what no longer belongs in your life, so that your heart may become lighter and your soul may have the chance to bloom in peace. Find. Letting go is not a way of escaping life, but a way of finally being honest with a spirit that has grown weary from years of constant struggle. Bond. Letting go also teaches us how to love properly through mindfulness and understanding, rather than through painful attachment and possession. Or when we learn to release things at the right time, we discover that life remains beautiful even when events unfold differently from our expectations. And within this ever-changing world, human beings can finally smile with a heart that feels wonderfully light and free. 5. Life has never required perfection before we are allowed to experience genuine happiness and lasting peace. Nor do we need to compete with anyone or seize anything from the world in order to prove our worth. A mind capable of remaining present amid uncertainty and a heart strong enough to endure change are already more than enough. 5. The Buddha has never existed somewhere distant and unreachable, but is present within every mindful breath taken by an awakened person. He is present in every unhurried step, in every loving glance, and in every smile that has learned the gentle art of letting go. 5. The Pure Land is not merely a destination to pray for or long toward, but the purity that already exists deep within the human heart. 5. When anger, jealousy, competition, and grasping fade away, the inner world naturally becomes a realm of profound peace and wonder. Human beings do not need to travel far in search of enlightenment, because that path has always existed beneath every step they take. Every small action performed with mindfulness and sincere love already contains the profound wisdom of the Buddha's teachings. 5. Even a simple meal eaten with gratitude can become a meaningful spiritual practice within the ordinary rhythm of daily life. 5. A gentle word that eases another person's suffering is already a beautiful act of goodness within this world, filled with hardship. Even a single moment in which we stop judging ourselves can become the first step toward awakening and inner healing. 5. Therefore, if one day you feel exhausted by life's burdens, disappointments, and wounds, return gently to your own heart. Return like a wandering child who has finally found home after years of drifting through the storms of life. Return as a leaf that, after enduring countless seasons of wind and turbulence, finally settles back into the peace of its original source. You do not need to become anyone else or continue carrying the heavy mask of artificial strength. 5. Nor do you need to prove anything to the world, because simply being present and breathing in this moment is already enough. Simply realizing that you are still alive, still learning to love, and still learning to heal is something immensely precious. We are all learning to release what no longer serves us, learning to forgive, and learning to remain peaceful amidst countless disappointments. In this life, tears and smiles always travel together as two inseparable aspects of the journey towards spiritual maturity. Every one of us has cried in loneliness at some point, and every one of us has also smiled while embracing the beauty of life. 5. Yet, the meaning of those tears and smiles depends entirely upon the state of mind from which they arise. If tears fall from resentment and attachment, they resemble a cold rain that casts even deeper shadows over an already troubled soul. Such tears do not reduce suffering, but instead make the heart heavier and deepen its wounds over time. But when tears are shed through understanding and release, they become like healing nectar that soothes and transforms the mind. Those tears wash away the dust accumulated within the heart, allowing us to feel lighter, more open, and more luminous in life. And likewise, there are smiles that serve merely as strained masks, hiding deep and unspoken pain within the soul. 5. The more we use smiles to conceal suffering, the more exhausted and isolated we become beneath the pressures of daily life. Fact. Yet, when a smile arises from genuine inner peace, it carries a profoundly healing and transformative energy. 5. Such a smile not only comforts the one who wears it, but also spreads warmth to hearts that have grown cold through suffering. Bounds. It helps others believe that amidst all the uncertainty and hardship of life, gentle lights of hope still continue to shine. 5. Someone once asked what it truly means to live beautifully in a world filled with change, competition, and uncertainty. 5. Many people believe that living beautifully means being praised, admired, and showered with the approval of others. 5. Yet the true beauty of a person is not found in the eyes of the world, but in the imprint they leave upon the hearts of others. Fate. A timely word of comfort, a hand offered when someone feels vulnerable, or a sincere act of forgiveness are all forms of profound beauty. Find. A beautiful person is not someone whose name everyone remembers, but someone who leaves a little more peace wherever they go. Found. The Buddha taught that compassion is the source of all merit and the very foundation of a meaningful and worthwhile life. 5. A person who possesses loving kindness will neither create suffering for themselves nor bring additional pain to anyone else in this world. But living beautifully means planting seeds of love within every thought, every word, and every action that arises throughout each day. When we see others suffering, we learn to open our hearts with compassion, and when we witness mistakes, we practice understanding and gentle forgiveness. First, when causes and conditions are no longer aligned, we also learn to let go peacefully instead of clinging through pain, desperation, and sorrow. Bound. This is not merely a beautiful way of living, but also an expression of wisdom and a profound understanding of life's impermanent nature. Find. Human life is remarkably brief, and carrying resentment within the heart is truly unnecessary and deeply exhausting. Find. A person who clings to hatred is like someone tying a heavy stone to their own foot and then wondering why walking through life feels so difficult. Forgiving others is, in truth, a way of liberating our own souls from the invisible chains forged by suffering and attachment. Find. Many of us often confuse forgiveness with enabling harmful behavior and letting go with weakness of character. Faith. Some believe that forgiving someone means giving them permission to continue hurting us again and again. Fine. Yet forgiveness has never meant forgetting everything or continuing to endure the same old bitterness and injustice. 4. Forgiveness simply means learning how to set down a burden so that the heart is no longer enslaved by painful memories of the past. 5. Imagine someone holding a stone in their hand continuously. At first, it may not seem heavy, but over time, it becomes exhausting. Find. Anger and resentment are much like that stone, appearing manageable in the beginning, yet gradually wearing down both body and spirit. Best. When a painful event first occurs, we may endure it, but if we continue carrying it within, it slowly begins consuming everything. Forgiveness is the art of placing that stone down so that the hands may rest and the heart may finally breathe with ease. 5. There is something remarkable about forgiveness. Until it truly happens, every recollection of the past can hurt as though it happened yesterday. The anger and wounded feelings continue repeating themselves like an endless cycle, preventing the mind from ever finding true peace. We may think that our resentment punishes someone else, yet the person suffering most deeply is often ourselves. Find the one most harmed by resentment is not the other person, but our own heart as it struggles through restless and troubled days. For resentment cannot truly reach the other person's heart, but quietly burns within the soul of the one who carries it. Find the Buddha taught that anger is like holding a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at another person, while your own hand is burned first. Find, indeed, if we continue carrying hatred within, we gradually cause our own spirits to wither and become exhausted over time. Fire. Forgiveness is learning how to extinguish that fire of anger before it consumes every trace of peace within the heart. Find, although forgiveness cannot alter what has already happened in the past, it can heal the present and open the way toward a brighter future. Find, when resentment is finally released, the heart gains space for gentle peace to enter and remain for a long while. Faith, when people truly forgive, their hearts begin opening once again to love life with greater gentleness, understanding, and compassion. Find, forgiveness has never been about giving comfort to someone else, but about freeing our own souls from the invisible chains of suffering. Find, nor is forgiveness offered because another person deserves compassion, but because we deserve a lighter and more peaceful life. Found, to speak honestly, forgiveness is one of the most difficult and profound lessons that every human being must eventually learn. And its difficulty does not come from a lack of understanding, but because the human heart is tender while carrying countless wounds. And some people have tearfully admitted that they wish to let go, yet painful memories keep pulling them back into the past. And they sincerely want to forgive, but the wounds hidden within their hearts continue bleeding and aching whenever they are remembered. Farce. Indeed, forgiveness has never been something that can be accomplished instantly through a few simple words. 5. It requires a heart spacious enough and a spirit courageous enough to walk through the deepest layers of pain. People often must endure countless nights of struggle and many silent days facing themselves before they can truly release what they carry. And much of this difficulty arises because we have not fully accepted that no one in this world is entirely right or entirely wrong. Or those who once hurt us may simply be reflecting wounds within themselves that have never been healed. And some people speak harshly to others while secretly battling their own suffering and inner turmoil. Bound. Yet because we usually see only the surface of a story, we easily believe that we alone are the victim in every painful circumstance. Vows. We forget that through those harmful actions, they too are planting seeds of unwholesome karma within their own lives. Bound. And according to the profound law of cause and effect, those unwholesome seeds will eventually ripen into corresponding suffering. Bound. When we view situations through the lens of karmic understanding, we begin to see that such people deserve compassion more than blame. Find. In the scriptures, the Buddha taught that there is no fire more destructive than anger, and no wrongdoing heavier than hatred and resentment. Bent. Anger does not merely burn the one who is harmed, but quietly consumes the very person who continues nurturing it within their own consciousness. Back. A person who clings to resentment is like someone who personally fastens chains around their own heart, locking themselves inside suffering and exhaustion. Bound. They are like someone drinking poison while hoping another person will die from the hatred they themselves continue to carry. Therefore, forgiveness is not first and foremost a gift for the other person, but a gift of liberation offered to our own soul. It is the act of removing invisible chains and extinguishing the fire of resentment that has silently burned within the heart for many years. Human life is brief and impermanent, and everything that happened yesterday, whether joyful or painful, eventually becomes part of the past. Yet countless people continue choosing to live inside the painful memories of yesterday and the shadows of those who once hurt them. They do not realize that each time they reopen an old wound in memory, they inflict that pain upon themselves once again. Nor do they see that when the past dominates the mind, they are sacrificing the joy of the present and the peace of the future. Forgiveness is the practice of setting the past down so that both the hands and the heart may be free to receive what lies ahead. Through countless lifetimes within the cycle of rebirth, people have met, loved, hated, and repaid karmic debts through immeasurable webs of connection. Because the law of cause and effect never errs. Those who share karmic ties will eventually encounter one another again in some form. Some people enter our lives to teach us lessons about love, while others arrive to help us understand loss and separation. Some appear solely to teach us how to let go, while others remind us of the impermanent nature of all human existence. But when we understand this, we begin to see that every relationship in life serves a necessary purpose in our spiritual growth. And all of these connections, whether joyful or painful, become opportunities for learning, transformation, and the cultivation of wisdom. Life resembles a long river through which countless people pass, each leaving different traces upon the journey. Some leave behind the fragrance of kindness and love, while others leave the debris of pain and suffering. Yet, the river simply continues flowing, neither clinging to the fragrance of flowers in pride, nor holding on to debris in bitterness. The river embraces everything with patience, and then releases everything in order to continue its own journey. If human beings could learn the virtue of that river, their hearts would become far more peaceful, spacious, and free. When someone brings joy into our lives, we smile with gratitude, and when someone brings sorrow, we accept it as a lesson in growth. In the end, everyone eventually departs, and what remains with us is our own soul and the wisdom we have gained. Just as the river, after countless encounters, ultimately remains itself, quietly flowing beneath the vast and endless sky. Forgiveness, at its deepest level, is a spiritual practice that nurtures compassion and expands the heart's capacity for understanding. It allows us to look more deeply and recognize that every person carries hidden struggles, wounds, and forms of ignorance within. The person who once hurt us may simply be someone who is lost within their own journey of suffering and inner unrest. If we possess enough understanding to illuminate the situation, enough love to embrace it, and enough wisdom to empathize, forgiveness naturally arises. Then we no longer see ourselves as helpless victims, but as people learning how to dissolve resentment through compassion. In doing so, we quietly plant wholesome seeds, both for ourselves and for those who once caused us pain. Forgiveness does not mean erasing everything that happened or pretending those wounds never existed within our lives. nor does forgiveness require us to remain in circumstances that once shattered our spirit or caused profound harm. As forgiveness simply means refusing to allow the past to continue controlling the present and refusing to let resentment wither the heart. It means no longer burdening the soul with wounds that belong to chapters of life that have already passed. Found. It is learning not to allow past injuries to dictate the present moment or cast darkness across our future. And forgiveness is also the journey of rising after life's storms and walking back into the light with steadier steps and a gentler heart. Because human life is so brief, clinging to hatred causes us to lose countless precious moments that are still waiting ahead. Forgiveness is the choice to give ourselves a peaceful life rather than remaining imprisoned by memories of old sorrow. It is also granting ourselves permission to smile once again after months or years of quietly enduring emotional pain. This too is a great blessing, for it frees us from the chains of resentment and opens a path through which love may enter. Life has never unfolded entirely according to the wishes of any person living within this ever-changing world. There are times when we act with complete sincerity, yet others still view us with suspicion and uncertainty. There are also moments when we devote our whole heart to an effort, only to find that the outcome falls far short of our expectations. And there are days when we seek nothing more than peace, yet unexpected waves of life still arrive and leave the inner world trembling. In truth, life is not always as harsh as it seems. Often, it is because our minds have not yet become mindful enough to remain steady amid constant change. When the heart still expects perfect fairness from others, every misunderstanding becomes a source of deep and painful suffering. When we still long for recognition and approval, even a single rejection can leave the soul feeling wounded and profoundly saddened. And when people place too many expectations upon life itself, disappointment naturally arises whenever events fail to unfold as desired. In this lifetime, everyone will eventually be hurt, at least once, by those they have loved and treasured most deeply. Precisely because we love so deeply, we create many expectations, and because of those expectations, the wounds of disappointment cut even deeper. There are careless words spoken by parents, spouses, or children that resemble tiny blades, quietly carving into the heart. Sometimes the speaker has long forgotten them, yet the listener carries the pain for years without finding relief. Each time the memory returns, the wound seems to bleed again silently and ache within the stillness of the night. Although a person may be living in the present, their heart remains suspended within the sorrows of the past. Such a person may continue smiling outwardly at life, while inwardly enduring countless sleepless nights of unrest. Yet eventually, we must ask ourselves how much longer we truly wish to remain within the shadows of those old wounds. Do we want to spend the remainder of our lives embracing ancient sorrow, or are we willing to open the door and allow light to enter? Forgiveness is the key that enables us to unlock that door and step out from the dark room of resentment and suffering. Although forgiveness cannot erase memories completely, it can gradually soothe the pain hidden within those memories. Forgiveness may not transform the other person into someone better, but it will certainly bring greater peace and lightness to our own hearts. 3. For this reason, forgiveness is also a form of wisdom and a beautiful quality possessed by a soul matured through life's many challenges. Faith. In such circumstances, forgiveness is not only offered to others, but becomes a profound gift of healing for ourselves. 4. We forgive ourselves for placing excessive expectations upon others and then wounding ourselves through disappointment. 4. We also forgive ourselves for moments of weakness when careless words from others were allowed to pierce our hearts for far too long. 4. We forgive ourselves for foolishly carrying resentment instead of learning how to let go and rediscover inner peace. 5. Some people may ask whether forgiveness means admitting that the other person was completely right. 4. But no, forgiveness has never meant approving wrongdoing or denying the truth of what actually happened. 4. Forgiveness simply means looking directly at reality and understanding that the past can no longer be changed. 5. If we continue carrying resentment, the person who suffers more each day is ultimately ourselves. 4. Forgiveness is the decision not to allow old wounds to continue controlling the present or stealing peace from the heart. 5. It is also a gentle way of telling ourselves that we deserve to live a more peaceful and harmonious life. Faith. Long ago, there was an elderly man who carried resentment toward his neighbor for many years because of a minor dispute. 4. From the day he felt insulted, he refused to look at that neighbor again and quietly nourished bitterness within his heart. Forced. Each time he passed the neighbor's house, his chest tightened as though thousands of needles were piercing his heart. 5. As the years passed, he grew older and weaker, yet whenever he remembered the incident, his chest would ache intensely. 5. Eventually, he became seriously ill, and his son brought him to a temple so that monks could chant scriptures and help bring peace to his mind. 4. After the chanting ceremony, the abbot gently asked whether there was anything in his heart that he still could not release. 5. The old man remained silent for a long time before suddenly breaking into tears and confessing that he had carried hatred towards someone for decades. 5. He said that he sincerely wanted to forgive, but the harder he tried to forget, the more deeply the pain seemed to tear through his heart. 5. The monk looked at him with great compassion and softly explained that the other man was living normally, while he himself remained imprisoned within hatred. 5. He said that resentment was like a yoke hanging around the neck, yet the key to unlock it had always been resting within one's own hands. Bound. The moment a person becomes willing to let go, those chains begin to dissolve, and the heart can rediscover the peace it lost long ago. 5. Hatred has never been the rope binding us to another person. It is the rope we tie around ourselves through our own suffering. 5. The old man listened quietly to those teachings while tears soaked the faded fabric of the robe he wore. Best. For the first time in many years, he closed his eyes, recited the Buddha's name, and sincerely generated the intention to forgive the person he had resented. 5. Something remarkable happened in that very moment, as he felt his heart become astonishingly light, as though a massive stone had finally been lifted away. Yes, a few days later, he departed this world peacefully, with a gentle and serene expression, as though he had never carried any hatred at all. But human beings often live in much the same way, allowing silent resentment to gradually weaken and exhaust both body and mind. Sometimes, the stubborn attachments we carry within cause us to lose beautiful opportunities that life once offered with great gentleness and grace. There are also times when our inability to let go quietly pushes happiness and peace farther away from our lives without us even realizing it. If people possess the courage to forgive, they will discover that their hearts become remarkably lighter after years of carrying accumulated suffering. The pains that once tormented us gradually transform into precious lessons that help the soul mature and deepen in wisdom. Those who once caused us pain eventually become unexpected teachers who appeared in our lives to teach us strength and resilience. And once that lesson has truly been learned, there is no longer any need to continue carrying it like an unhealed wound. Forgiveness has never been something that happens instantly after a moment of realization or a few words spoken to oneself. Some wounds require tremendous amounts of time, many sleepless nights, and countless tears before they can finally be released. Yet do not lose hope because of this. For every time we contemplate forgiveness, we plant another wholesome seed within the heart. That seed may sprout very slowly beneath the heavy layers of suffering, but eventually it will emerge and grow with strength. As the seed of forgiveness matures within the soul, it becomes a great tree whose shade shelters us from life's storms. And beneath that gentle shade, the heart gradually becomes lighter, calmer, and more peaceful amidst the endless changes of the human world. In life, there are events that, once they have occurred, can only be accepted because they can no longer be changed or avoided forever. The more fiercely we struggle against what cannot be altered, the more exhausted and painful our inner world becomes. Some people have turned away and left our lives, and the only thing remaining for us to do is learn how to let go peacefully. Not because the heart no longer loves, but because continuing to cling only causes both people greater suffering and hurt. Life contains roads that, once traveled, cannot be retraced as though nothing had ever happened. We can only continue forward or pause to rest, but we cannot remain forever within the illusion of denying reality. There are forms of helplessness that leave people able to do nothing but sigh quietly whenever old memories return. Yet, if we become calm enough to look more deeply, we may discover that those very moments of helplessness open the door to a gentler path. Sometimes losing something is not truly a loss, but an opportunity to rediscover ourselves after wandering for far too long. Some things leave our lives only to free us from situations that no longer align with our present causes and conditions. And some separations allow the heart to become lighter after years spent carrying burdens that no longer deserve preservation. There are certain pains that dissolve on their own if we simply remain patient and silent for a little while longer, like thin clouds crossing a vast sky. There are worries that begin to fade the moment we take a deep breath in and release it slowly with awareness. There are also words that lose their significance entirely if we choose not to respond impulsively in the moment. Some feelings, when no longer fed by endless expectations, eventually become peaceful and gentle memories with the passing of time. Living in this world, the deepest level of letting go and maturity often lies in understanding and accepting things exactly as they are. Not everyone who enters our lives is meant to remain forever, and not every encounter requires a perfect ending. Some relationships are already complete simply because we loved sincerely and treated one another with genuine kindness. While those who truly care for us rarely need loud displays or beautiful promises to prove the depth of their affection. Instead, they quietly remain beside us through ordinary days that seem neither remarkable nor memorable to the outside world. They may not express their feelings dramatically, yet they always appear when needed, and though they make few promises, they remain sincere. A lasting connection is never built upon outward beauty alone, but upon two hearts willing to accept each other's imperfections. It is the journey of learning patience together, growing together, and continuing hand in hand through life's changing seasons. If a bond still possesses the necessary conditions, then no matter how many challenges or distances arise, a way forward will eventually appear. But if the conditions supporting that connection have already ended, then even great effort may leave behind only emptiness and weariness. Do not wait until something is lost before regretting the ordinary blessings that once existed quietly within everyday life. The truth is that people usually know what they have, yet become so focused on what they lack that they forget to appreciate the present. Every loved one beside us, every simple meal, and every ordinary moment is a precious gift offered by life itself. Learn to cherish even the smallest things, such as a sincere laugh or a quiet afternoon spent alone without loneliness in the heart. For one day, when looking back, we may regret not having lived fully within those moments that once seemed insignificant. Many of life's most beautiful experiences do not arise from careful planning, but appear naturally when the heart is peaceful in the present. There are times when you make immense efforts, yet no one notices or acknowledges the sacrifices and dedication you have quietly offered. Yet, when we finally learn to let go with grace and ease, others sometimes turn back and begin to recognize the true value that was always present within us. Only then do we understand that sincere effort was never meant to earn recognition from others, but to ensure that we ourselves have no regrets. Life does not always grant people the things they desire most deeply during every stage of their journey. Yet many times, the things we fail to obtain are precisely the things we should avoid in order to prevent deeper suffering. When heaven does not give us something, it is not necessarily because we are unworthy, but perhaps because a more suitable condition has yet to arrive. Some blessings can enter our lives and remain peacefully only when the proper time and circumstances have matured. Simple living is naturally joyful, yet as the human heart becomes increasingly complicated, genuine happiness seems to grow more distant. It is not because life itself is cruel, but because people carry too many desires and demands, causing suffering to accumulate within. Learn to let go at the proper moment so that the soul may become lighter instead of continuing to cling to what has exhausted the heart. Whatever is still worthy of being cherished should be preserved with all the sincerity and mindful awareness we can offer. And whatever has reached the time to be released should be set down gently so that peace may once again find room within the heart. For only when an old door closes can life open a new door that better aligns with our present causes and conditions. Find. True serenity has never come from how many things we possess, but from how much weight the heart has learned to release. Find. Lighter in expectations placed upon others, and lighter in the complaints and disappointments that only deepen suffering. While lighter in resentment, competition, and stubborn attachment, so that the heart may return to its original state of peace. Find. Only then does life become a precious gift rather than a burden carried heavily upon our shoulders. Find. Amid a modern world filled with busyness, competition, and constant striving, simplicity has become something surprisingly rare and precious. First, the more people accumulate, the more lacking they often feel, and the more intensely they chase life, the more exhausted they become. Find. The more things a person carries within the heart, the heavier the inner world becomes, and the harder it is to find genuine peace. But if we look deeply into the root of our weariness, we discover that it comes not from life itself, but from a mind that never knows how to stop. And living simply does not mean living in poverty or deprivation, but understanding what is truly enough, so that craving no longer dominates the heart. But it is a way of life that wisely chooses what deserves to remain and what should never be allowed into the inner world. Find. Letting go does not mean abandoning everything, but no longer exhausting ourselves by clinging to what no longer belongs to our path. And maintaining a steady heart amid life has never meant achieving perfection according to the expectations of the world. What truly matters is that no matter how turbulent life becomes, our inner world remains stable and we do not lose ourselves. To live lightly, we must first learn to clean and organize the crowded inner landscape of our own minds. Begin with small things, such as releasing relationships that have become unhealthy and continue causing unnecessary pain. Clear away unrealistic expectations and the resentments that have remained buried within the heart for many years. For only when the inside becomes truly peaceful and clear can we recognize that what we already possess is more than enough. Or only when the mind is no longer cluttered by affliction and craving can life appear as light as white clouds drifting across the sky. Practice the habit of letting go at the right time instead of stubbornly holding on to things that have already reached the moment of departure. Some people leave our lives only to make room for more harmonious and meaningful connections waiting ahead. Certain jobs or circumstances come to an end only to guide us back toward what is truly essential for our journey. Do not spend your days trapped in regret or desperate grasping, because some things can no longer be preserved, regardless of effort. What truly belongs within your karmic path will remain, even when you stop clinging to it through fear and suffering. Keeping a steady heart amid life means preserving a sanctuary of deep peace within yourself, despite the chaos surrounding you. So that whenever the world becomes noisy, uncertain, and unstable, you still have a refuge to which you can return for healing. That refuge may be nothing more than a gentle recitation of the Buddha's name that calms the heart amid life's endless changes. It may also be a quiet morning spent drinking tea mindfully, or the habit of reading a few pages before sleep. Sometimes peace is simply listening to the wind in silence and taking the time to sincerely listen to your own heart. Inner peace never appears by accident. but is the result of daily choices and steady cultivation through mindfulness and understanding. Bide. It is choosing not to speak harsh words merely to satisfy a temporary surge of anger within. Vide. It is choosing not to continue nurturing resentment so that the heart is no longer consumed by old and painful memories. Bind. It is choosing not to remain trapped in the past, not to resent the present, and not to become overwhelmed by fears of the future that has yet to arrive. Bard. You may not be wealthy in material possessions, but do not allow your inner world to become impoverished through coldness and a lack of love. Bars. You may live a simple life, but never let your soul become dry and barren because of excessive ambition and endless competition. Fine. Do everything with a gentle heart and embrace the present moment with warmth, gratitude, and deep appreciation. Fine. Then no matter how many changes and challenges life brings your way, you will remain strong through the peace that resides within. 5. And if there are times when life feels overwhelmingly difficult, remember that life cannot defeat a person who knows how to let go wisely and at the right time. Fact. Amid a world filled with complexity, what people truly long for is nothing more than simplicity and peace of mind. 5. Yet the paradox is that the more people seek simplicity, the more they chase things that make their lives increasingly complicated. The more we desire peace, the more we fill our hearts with worries, concerns, and endless disturbances. Fine. The more we wish to feel complete, the more lacking we feel, because our attention remains fixed upon what we do not have. 5. The more people strive to build abundance in the outer world, the more anxiety and exhaustion often accumulate within. Bide. Eventually, we must ask ourselves whether we are truly living or merely running endlessly after things that drain the spirit. 5. Within the Buddha's teachings is a profound truth. Those with fewer desires suffer less, and those who know contentment are the truly wealthy. Bide. Whoever can live a simple life moves through the world with freedom because they are no longer dragged along by endless worldly cravings. Band. The simpler life becomes, the more peaceful the heart becomes, and when the heart is peaceful, everything feels lighter and more harmonious. Bide. When the heart is light, even large problems begin to seem smaller, while small concerns no longer deserve much attention at all. This lightness is not the avoidance of responsibility or the abandonment of duty, but the refusal to be chained by what is unnecessary. And it is the state of someone who has learned how to let go at the proper time and no longer becomes trapped in the ego's endless competitions. Sometimes people create their own suffering by filling the heart with unrealistic expectations and countless desires. We want to be loved, we want to be recognized, and we want others to fully understand every feeling hidden within us. We also want life to unfold exactly according to our wishes, and therefore feel deep disappointment whenever it does not. Each desire becomes like an invisible hook attached to the heart, pulling the soul deeper into anxiety and unrest. People allow themselves to be pulled in every direction by expectations and desires until they gradually become exhausted and overwhelmed. After years of living this way, we often conclude that life has been unfair to us, while forgetting to examine our own troubled minds. In truth, life is not necessarily unfair. Rather, we have carried far too many unnecessary burdens into our journey. A cup can only hold a certain amount of water, and if we continue pouring more into it, the water will overflow. Faith. The human mind is much the same. When it becomes crowded with ambitions and worries, even happiness struggles to remain. Thus, when the heart is already overflowing, even blessings and love may arrive only to pass through without staying. 5. Human beings must learn how to preserve a gentle inner space where peace and mindful awareness can comfortably reside. Faith. That space is not loneliness or emptiness, but a quiet opening through which fresh winds may pass and light may enter. Faith. It is a place where the heart can breathe freely without being pressured by desires and expectations of its own making. Then, living simply means choosing wholesome things to keep while turning away from influences that burden the mind and darken the heart. Friends, it is also the journey of releasing afflictions so that the inner world may rise above suffering and return to its natural serenity. Base. People who live simply rarely compare themselves with others and seldom become entangled in meaningless disputes. Faith. When we compare less, the heart becomes less restless, and when the heart is at peace, life naturally feels much lighter. Faith. This is the path leading toward a meaningful and profound life without the need for unnecessary complexity or outward display. Faith. It is a life that is peaceful without being lazy, simple without lacking love, and illuminated by the light of awareness. Best. If we look even more deeply, we will discover that simple living is not merely a lifestyle, but a profound spiritual practice. And it is the journey of returning to the original purity of the heart after years of being covered by the dust of worldly distractions. Base. It is learning to release superficial layers of appearance and illusion in order to touch the serenity already present within every breath. Bay. That peace has always existed within each step we take and within every human heart willing to pause and listen. Then, if your heart feels heavy and your life seems tangled and confused, try allowing yourself to slow down for a while. Fast. Release a few burdens, set down a few expectations, and watch your spirit gradually become lighter with each passing day. 4. Then you will discover that a simple life has never been a poor life, but one that is profoundly rich in spirit. 5. It is the richness of contentment, gratitude, and mindful awareness that needs no display and seeks no recognition from anyone. 4. Contentment is the deepest root of true happiness and the foundation that allows people to remain peaceful amid the ever-changing circumstances of life. Not everyone who is poor is destined to suffer, and not everyone who possesses great wealth will necessarily discover genuine happiness. Vows. Suffering does not depend on how much we possess, but on whether we know when to stop and appreciate what is already enough. Fand. A person who never knows how to stop will feel deprived and restless, even while standing amid mountains of gold, jewels, and treasure. Ford. In contrast, someone who understands contentment can feel complete with a simple meal and a peaceful place to call home. Aid. That happiness is like the bright autumn moon, unassuming and gentle, yet capable of filling the heart with extraordinary serenity. Fast. In today's world, people are easily drawn into endless desires for material possessions, status, and external achievements. Vow. Many constantly seek a larger house, a more luxurious car, or newer possessions in order to validate their worth before others. Thus, yet the more they acquire, the more lacking they often feel. because human ambition rarely finds a true point of completion. Thus, one achievement leads to another pursuit, leaving the heart like a bottomless bag that can never be completely filled. Eventually, we may realize that our lives have been carried far away by things that belong only to the outer world. If we constantly feel that nothing is enough, how can the soul ever experience true peace and contentment? The Buddhist scriptures teach that a person who knows contentment can remain joyful, even while resting upon cold ground. Meanwhile, one who never feels satisfied may live in paradise itself and still remain dissatisfied with everything they possess. Contentment is among the highest expressions of wisdom and one of the most profound arts of living that a person can cultivate. Being content does not mean abandoning all effort, but understanding the difference between sincere striving and blind ambition. We may continue working diligently and pursuing worthy goals, yet without losing ourselves in competition, status, or worldly gain. Some people spend their entire lives working tirelessly, accumulating wealth, and chasing success, only to long for a peaceful night's sleep. Or, after everything, what they truly need may simply be a meal filled with laughter and a home where loved ones remain together. It may be nothing more than a day without conflict or the comforting presence of someone dear still beside them. Only then do people suddenly realize that the most precious treasures had always existed quietly within their everyday lives. Yet because they never learned contentment, they unknowingly overlooked those simple blessings for many years. We do not need to abandon everything and retreat into remote mountains to discover peace within the heart. What is truly needed is learning to live a little more simply amid the pressures and demands of daily life. Compare yourself to others a little less, and the heart will no longer be tormented by feelings of lack or competition. Desire a little less, and stop chasing every opinion or judgment that comes from the world around you. We should also learn to stop demanding that others live according to our expectations so that the heart may become lighter. A home does not need to be large, for if it is filled with love and laughter, it already resembles a paradise on earth. A meal does not need to be extravagant, because when it is shared with affection, it becomes one of life's greatest blessings. A life does not need spectacular success, because living peacefully, ethically, and with kindness is already deeply valuable. Living simply does not mean living with less, but learning to live more deeply within each present moment. It is not poverty of material things, but richness of understanding and depth of perspective regarding human life. A person may appear simple on the outside, while possessing immense wealth within the heart and the light of wisdom. The one who knows contentment and understands when to stop is among the richest people in this restless and uncertain world. The Buddha once taught that there is no separate path leading to happiness, because happiness itself is the path we walk each day. If we wait until all worries disappear before allowing ourselves to be happy, or until suffering completely ends before finding peace, we may wait forever. The nature of life has never been perfect, nor will it ever fully conform to every human expectation. Understanding this truth, those with wisdom choose to live wholeheartedly with what is present in this very moment. They choose optimism amid imperfection and continue loving life, even when reality falls short of their dreams. Face. Optimism is not always a radiant smile or forced positive words used to conceal inner confusion. Vast. Nor is it a way of hiding sadness or pretending to be strong while the heart remains deeply wounded. Vast. True optimism is the inner strength of a soul that has endured great suffering, yet refuses to be drowned by it. Va. It is the understanding that life will sometimes be bright and beautiful, while at other times, storms will darken the heart. Faith. There are moments when we are embraced by love, and there are also times when we must face loss and separation within this impermanent world. Face. Yet instead of endlessly blaming fate, those who live with optimism learn how to accept and transform whatever circumstances arise before them. Veiled. They learn to recognize small rays of light within darkness and discover hope even in moments that seem completely hopeless. Find. Optimism does not mean denying sadness, but refusing to allow sadness to linger so long that it overshadows an entire life. Bond. Nor is it a way of escaping hardship, but rather a refusal to let difficulties erase all the goodness that still surrounds us. Fair. An optimistic person does not pretend to be happy, but chooses to remain calm, kind, and steady while continuing forward through life's many challenges. Force. Some people appear carefree on the surface, yet in truth, they have shed countless tears during long and lonely nights. Fine. They have known failure, endured misunderstanding, lost everything they once possessed, and survived periods when standing up again seemed impossible. Bond. What prevents them from collapsing is their faith that every sorrow will eventually pass and that all things change with time. Face. They understand that when the mind remains calm, no storm outside can truly overthrow the peace within. Bide. Optimism means refusing to allow external circumstances to drain away the remaining vitality and hope in the heart. Face. It is the courage to wipe away tears and still find the strength to smile and continue walking life's difficult path. Vice. Optimism is also the ability to appreciate the small blessings that remain, even when many things are still incomplete. Faith. It is a beautiful virtue that seeks no attention or praise, yet endures quietly and steadily, like the earth beneath us or the morning sun. Veil. An optimistic person is not someone who has never experienced sorrow, but someone who knows how to embrace sorrow with mindful understanding. Bide. They do not blame others, nor do they endlessly punish themselves, but quietly accept reality and continue forward through their own inner strength. For if today you feel as though your soul is surrounded by darkness, do not force yourself to become cheerful immediately. 5. Instead, give yourself a moment of stillness to look deeply within and listen to what your heart truly needs in order to heal. To become quiet enough to exhale the burdens you have carried for far too long and recognize that you are still alive in this world. Find, as long as a single breath remains, there is still an opportunity to begin again and choose a gentler way of living. Files. That new way may be more peaceful, more grateful, and more compassionate toward yourself after so many exhausting years. Find. And one day, you may find yourself smiling as you realize that optimism was never far away at all, but has always lived within your own heart. Fine. It has simply been waiting patiently to be awakened through mindfulness, kindness, and gentle awareness. Bide. And once that light is kindled, it can warm not only a single moment, but the remainder of your life. There are people who live surrounded by wealth, comfort, and material abundance, yet spend every day consumed by worry and sorrow. Meanwhile, others live in modest rooms with very little, yet their faces continually shine with peaceful and genuine smiles. This is not surprising, because happiness has never depended entirely upon circumstances, but upon how we perceive and experience life. True happiness arises from whether we know contentment, whether we know how to love, and whether we are willing to look deeply into the nature of things. Those who have never learned to return inward and examine themselves often judge happiness solely through wealth and social status. They believe that money will bring joy, fame will provide security, and praise from others will determine their worth. Yet, all it takes is a single, unexpected setback for those seemingly solid foundations to crumble in an instant. When wealth disappears, status fades away, and even trusted companions leave, people often awaken with profound clarity. Only then do they understand that external things cannot create lasting happiness, for they are merely paint covering an empty house. But those who have learned to practice, to pause, and to look deeply within, understand that happiness depends on how we view life itself. Happiness is not determined by how much we possess, but by whether we appreciate what is already present in our lives. Two people may share the same meal, yet the one who constantly complains finds only shortcomings and dissatisfaction. Meanwhile, the grateful person may feel deeply moved simply because food remains on the table and loved ones are gathered nearby. Two people may experience the same rainy day, yet the one filled with frustration sees only inconvenience and disappointment. In contrast, the one who loves nature sees the rain as a blessing that nourishes the earth and refreshes the world. Likewise, a single failure may discourage one person while becoming a precious lesson that helps another grow wiser and stronger. Those who easily lose heart after failure often stop midway through the journey, while those with wisdom transform failure into a teacher. The Buddha taught that a mind free from attachment is liberation, and a mind free from delusion is the source of genuine happiness. This teaching requires no complicated explanation, because anyone who observes the workings of their own mind each day will gradually understand it. As long as the heart remains filled with judgment, comparison, and demands that life conform to personal wishes, suffering will continue to exist. Yet the moment the heart learns acceptance, releases unnecessary expectations, and cherishes life's small blessings, happiness begins to take root and grow. That joy is not found somewhere far away, but exists within the present moment itself, when the heart finally stops resisting life. Once, a young practitioner approached a Zen master and confessed that despite years of practice, true peace still seemed beyond reach. The master simply smiled gently and replied that the reason peace remained elusive was because the student still believed happiness existed somewhere outside himself. The moment you stop searching for happiness elsewhere, every step you take and every breath you live will naturally become happiness itself. Happiness does not require waiting until everything becomes perfect, or until life is completely free from sorrow before you allow yourself to smile. Bound. Nor must a person become wealthier or possess more than others before feeling truly fulfilled and at peace. Bound. True happiness is simply a way of living, a way of seeing, and a mindful choice we make for ourselves each day. Fact. It is choosing to view life through eyes of gratitude rather than through comparison, complaint, and resentment toward what is missing. Base. It is choosing to face adversity with a calm and steady heart instead of allowing emotions to drag us into despair and affliction. There. It is also choosing to remain kind to others even during times when life itself has not treated us gently. Base. It is choosing to preserve a quiet sanctuary within the heart so that whenever storms arrive, we still have a place to return and find refuge. Bound. When you begin viewing life in this way, you will understand that happiness has never depended upon wealth or reputation in the world. Thou. As long as the heart remains pure, the spirit remains gentle, and life remains simple. Each passing day becomes a precious blessing. 3. There are 3 things that seem remarkably simple, yet when truly lived, they can make the heart lighter and life far more peaceful. Base. These 3 qualities are acceptance, letting go, and gratitude, humble virtues that possess extraordinary transformative power. Bound. Not everyone recognizes the profound strength hidden within these simple principles, and even fewer people embody all 3 completely. Base. Yet when they are woven into daily life, resentment, suffering, and mental burdens gradually begin to dissolve with surprising gentleness. Fade. Acceptance does not mean surrendering helplessly to fate, but represents a deep form of wisdom born from understanding life clearly. Bound. It is the courage to look directly at reality without struggling endlessly or complaining when events unfold differently than expected. Bound. It means recognizing that we are sad, disappointed, or facing hardship without blaming others or condemning life itself. Bound. Acceptance also means understanding that neither we nor others are perfect, and therefore releasing the demand that everything conform to our wishes. Bond. A wise person does not force life to obey personal desires, but learns instead to adjust the mind and harmonize with circumstances. Bound. Someone once asked what should be done if they learned acceptance, but another person continued, causing them pain. Best. The answer is that acceptance does not mean enduring suffering forever, but serves as the first step toward avoiding harmful reactions born from anger. Bound. From that calm foundation, a person gains the clarity needed to respond with wisdom, compassion, and kindness toward both themselves and others. Bound. Acceptance means acknowledging what has already happened and understanding that the past can no longer be changed. Bound. It means admitting that we too have made mistakes and learning from them so that the heart becomes more spacious and less attached. Bathe. When people stop resisting reality, the heart naturally becomes lighter and more peaceful amid life's endless impermanence. Then comes the practice of letting go, for there are things we once believed we had to hold tightly in order to survive. We often imagine that clinging to old relationships, old expectations, or old wounds will somehow keep us safe and secure. Bound. Yet the truth is that excessive attachment is precisely what causes the heart to become increasingly burdened and wounded over time. Bound. Because we refuse to release what should be released, the the mind grows exhausted beneath endless thoughts and recurring afflictions. Best, an unhealthy relationship, a wound carried for years, or a misplaced expectation can slowly drain the vitality from the human spirit. Babe, there are words that once hurt us deeply, but carrying them forever is like placing a heavy stone upon our own heart. Babe, letting go is, in many ways, an act of rescuing ourselves from suffering that we have unknowingly preserved within for too long. Bound. The Buddha never taught people to reject life or abandon every relationship and human connection. Rather, he taught that what is not truly ours should not become an object of excessive attachment, and what no longer belongs should not be pursued through suffering. What has already passed should not continually pull our gaze backward, for the heart deserves freedom from imprisonment within old memories. Bound. A person who knows how to let go chooses what is healthier and wiser for life, instead of allowing the past to destroy the present and future. Bold. And beyond everything else, gratitude is the deepest root from which lasting joy and genuine inner peace arise. Wide. A person who lacks gratitude will always feel deprived, even while surrounded by countless blessings. Wide. Such a person will also view life as unfair, because attention remains fixed upon what is absent rather than what has already been given. Wise. Yet, if each day you become still for a moment and write down a few things for which you are grateful, you will discover that joy has been nearby all along. 5. It is only because we have spent so many years distracted by worries, desires, and restless striving that we failed to notice it. Wide. Be grateful to the one who quietly prepares a meal for you, and be grateful to this body which, though imperfect, still gives you the strength to live each day. Wide. Be grateful to your parents, for even when understanding is not always perfect between you, they remain the deepest source of support throughout your life's journey. Wide. Be grateful even for the wounds that have passed through your life, because through those very pains, you learned how to grow stronger and wiser. Wide. Be grateful as well for the storms that once darkened your soul, for only after such difficult seasons do we truly appreciate the warmth of peaceful sunlight. Bard. The 3 keys called acceptance, letting go, and gratitude are not meant to be read once and forgotten like passing advice. Wide. They are daily practices that help us pause and return to mindful awareness whenever anger begins to arise. Bust. When the heart wants to cling tightly to things that do not truly belong to us, we learn to release them gently and peacefully. Base. When we feel deprived or unhappy, we learn to look inward and recognize how deeply loved and supported we already are. Past. We remain abundant even amid apparent lack if we learn to see through the eyes of gratitude and profound awareness. 5. A person who lives in this way no longer fears impermanence, no matter how greatly life changes or shifts around them. Bound. Whatever tomorrow may bring, they are not consumed by anxiety because they have already found a stable and peaceful refuge within. Passing. Even when facing loss, they do not lose faith in life or in the goodness that still exists around them. 5. For their joy no longer depends upon external circumstances, but has become a deeply rooted quality of the heart. Right. Life has never promised us a smooth journey free from storms, yet it continually offers moments of quiet completeness. Fine. Those moments reveal themselves only to people who move through this changing world with open hearts and gentle awareness. Or, while many continue searching for happiness through possessions and external achievements, others quietly return home to care for their own minds. Bard, such people preserve a sanctuary of peace amid chaos and a small light of clarity during uncertain and confusing times. Fine. These are the people who are truly walking the path of inner transformation through mindfulness and sincere understanding. 5. We have spoken at length about optimism, simple living, letting go, contentment, and the practice of gratitude. Yes, yet all of these beautiful teachings remain mere words if they are not genuinely woven into everyday life. Found. True practice means learning to live fully within each present moment that unfolds before us. 4. It is being fully aware while eating a meal and recognizing the miracle contained within every simple grain of rice. 5. It is listening to loved ones with the whole heart, instead of allowing the mind to drift endlessly through scattered thoughts. Bond. It is refusing to lose ourselves in old memories or distant expectations that have not yet come to pass. Bide. True happiness is not hidden within grand achievements or extraordinary accomplishments, but within the simple moments surrounding us each day. And it may be nothing more than a sincere glance that truly listens, or a gentle word that harms no one. Bide. It may also be a slow and mindful breath taken amidst the busyness and pressures of ordinary life. Thus, an optimistic person is not someone who is constantly smiling and laughing before the world face. Rather, they know when to remain silent, when to pause and rest, and how to be alone without feeling lonely. Face. They are also people who can face failure without losing faith in life or in themselves. Bide. A person who lives deeply does not need to speak lofty philosophies or profound doctrines to prove their understanding. Bide. They simply treat life with sincerity, view others through eyes of compassion, and meet themselves with kindness and acceptance. Bound. When we live in this way, the heart naturally becomes lighter and the soul grows steadier amid life's constant changes. Bound. Once inner peace has become firmly established, happiness is no longer something that must be searched for elsewhere. Fact, at that point, every moment you are living becomes a complete and wondrous expression of happiness itself. Vide. Always remember that no one can practice on your behalf, and no one can live your life for you. Bowed. Yet, every person who awakens and transforms themselves becomes like a lamp, adding more light to the world. Fact. If beginning today you cultivate even a single moment of letting go, one mindful breath, or one small act of kindness, then your family will gradually be transformed. Old karmic burdens will become lighter, and blessings will quietly begin to blossom from that peaceful heart. And Namo Amitabha Buddha. Find a single teaching of the Buddha, when remembered, may awaken us for a brief moment. And yet, a single teaching of the Buddha, when truly put into practice, has the power to transform an entire lifetime. Fine. If you have found today's reflection meaningful and beneficial, please consider liking, following, and sharing it with others. 5. This is not only a gesture of support for the channel, but also a beautiful way to help spread goodness and wisdom farm, allowing the Dharma to reach more people who are ready to receive its guidance. Thank you sincerely for your companionship and support. Bide. May you always preserve a peaceful heart amid the ever-changing currents of life, living each day with mindfulness, compassion, understanding, and genuine happiness. Fund. Namo Amitabha Buddha.